Welcome to Hope Family Resources, where counseling resources bring hope to the heart of your family. Today's topic concerns something we all experience every day of our lives: fear. Let us join Counseling Director Dr. Denise Mari and Recovery Counselor Tom Lamar as they discuss the different degrees of fear in lowering your nervous temperature.
Dr. Mari, the very basic question is, what is fear, and does it serve a purpose for man and even animals?
Yes, actually, fear is one of man's 11 basic emotions, and its function is to signal threat or danger to us, so that fear is activated as an emotion in the face of danger.
So what you're saying is fear is necessary for man or animals to combat or to run away from a threatening situation. I assume you're referring to external dangers, not just things inside of ourselves.
Well, actually, yes. Fear certainly is activated in the face of external dangers, such as, for example, you might be in the street and a mugging is about to take place of which you are the victim, and that would be an external danger that can arouse fear. But also you might experience fear from an internal danger, such as a memory from childhood or a particular thought that might scare you.
Why is it that some people seem to be more fearful than others?
Gee, there are many different reasons that some people are more fearful. Some people actually have a greater innate tendency to have fear stimulated or aroused in them, so that their threshold to the stimulation of fear is lower and more easily stimulated. Some people are more fearful often because they're simply tired, and when a person is tired, a person might start to think that something is a danger when it's not and become more fearful. Some people are actually more fearful because they have more passionate human natures, and so that their emotions are deeper, longer lasting, so that when their fear is stimulated, they actually experience more of the symptoms of fear and more easily than other people. There are also some people who would have real threats in their lives that would make them more afraid. Let's say we have a person who lives in a bad neighborhood and they're surrounded by danger constantly, and so they begin to live in a state of fear. So that would be from a real threat or a rational fear. Then there are also some people who imagine that things are dangerous when they're not, such as, for example, the case of the person who thinks that there's a conspiracy against him. And so he's imagining external situations that are dangerous that are not there. And I think one thing that we shouldn't forget is that fears can be from internal threats. A person who, for example, has back pain, and as soon as the pain starts to get worse, he starts to feel that he's scared and maybe the pain will get worse. And I think then that both internal and external dangers are important to look at in terms of fear.
Okay, being afraid of a medical condition.
Yes.
Could be a source of fear.
That's right.
Now, in our last program, we spoke about a deprivation syndrome, and you mentioned fear. This is with people who have not had enough unconditional love in their lives. Is this the same fear we're talking about, or is fear, in that case, is their fear rational or irrational?
When a person is suffering from emotional and social maturity, there are certain things that that particular person really does rationally need to be afraid of. For example, if he has a history of being socially awkward, he might rightfully fear that he might look a little foolish in a social grouping. So actually, a person suffering from deprivation-related symptoms can actually have a lot of rational fears.
So how about irrational fears, Dr. Mari? What are some of the signs that a person suffering from irrational fear might display?
Okay, if a person is suffering from irrational fear, he certainly can be suffering from symptoms such as panic or anxiety or obsessions or compulsions. It really just depends on how the irrational fears have come to pass and how he handles the fears. Does he let the fears get the better of him, or does he actually find a good way of dealing with them.
So now, if someone doesn't deal with this fear, what could that lead to?
Okay, if a person doesn't deal with the fear properly, then we have the problem of the person actually not feeling the fear. Let's say he has a fear, and all of a sudden he decides not to feel it, and instead he decides to run from feeling that fear and actually tries to get away from it. Or he might even pretend that the emotion, for example, is not bothering him if it's an emotion that he's afraid of, so that he may actually pretend that there's no emotional arousal that he needs to be concerned about. But actually, most commonly in counseling, what we do see is a fearful pattern of running away from emotions. I mean, people can be afraid of people, places, and things, including emotions.
Dr. Mari, could this ultimately lead to emotional breakdown?
Yes, definitely. All the signs that I talked about inevitably, when added together, lead to emotional breakdown.